There are those who would like to see you fail in your journey. That's not going to happen on my watch. Let's go.
Can we stop for ice cream, Bart? Can we stop for ice cream? Oh, it's the Max! Ho 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 ho! The Portland Light Rail System, the Max, and that's what it actually looks like. How sweet! So end of May, June, July, and now we're into August, so...
That was the longest night of my life.
Hello, I'm Kirk, and this is American Truck Simulator. Hello, we are about to travel, considering I just said American Truck Simulator and we're actually in Mexico. Got a series of map mods on boards which has given me basically access to modified maps for all of America, Mexico and Canada, but I'm going to keep it as American Truck Simulator. Maybe I should have just called it North American Truck Simulator to be done with it, but I never thought that I'd be going to Mexico and Canada. Anywho, we are about to leave San Luis Rio, Colorado in Mexico and head to Santa Ana, also in Mexico, 10 hours 30. And let's get into our truck and start to drive. Let's have a look outside. We're at a Walbert. There's our truck. We'll get in.
There are those who would like to see you fail in your journey. That's not going to happen on my watch. Let's go.
It's a pretty weak horn, Morgan Freeman. Okay, we can get rid of the fake mirrors. So it is Monday at 9:30 p.m. We're expected at this rate Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. 212 miles, 13 hours and 55 minutes. We will probably need to rest at some point. Next rest stop in 13 hours and 57 minutes, so we won't need to rest according to that. So let's get on with it, shall we? Whoops. Let's get on with it. Where's our exit? I should have had a look at that beforehand. Where's our exit? I can't see down there. Alright, let's go. Okay, it's raining. So, in the last episode, I introduced you to the... now, this lighting is so dark. If I done my usual trick, yeah, where I've gone the wrong way out of the distribution center. This isn't good. Alright. Oh, would have been handy to see that exit sign before. I didn't say it before. It wasn't in the field of the headlights, obviously. So, we are leaving Walbert. Now, I do have a range of mods installed to modify the maps, and that's what we had on the last episode. So what we've done, well, what I've done in this episode to sort of see how it works.
1 mile. Turn right. Turn right.
Sort of see how it goes. I've reinstalled some of my real life mods that I've got from the same workshop. So it's things like realistic companies, realistic buses, realistic trains, weather mod, real advertisements, that sort of thing, real gas stations. So we'll see how that goes as we go down the map. Now that looks like a fairly realistic BP.
Continue straight.
Yep. So that looks good. So we're in Mexico at the moment. Alright, let's go. So I was a bit worried about installing some of these mods because it might interfere with the map, and there's probably a lot of things that these mods don't necessarily cover because they're not expecting to, for instance, go into Canada or go into Mexico. So a lot of the things that we're probably seeing at the moment are the map mods.
Continue straight.
Thanks, Morgan. Our simulated navigator, Mr. Morgan Freeman. Oh, well, that's a fair to add. That's a real ad. So that's working.
Continue straight.
So we're off into the night now. Got a lane merge ahead, but that's alright because we're already in the lane that doesn't merge. Now we're here. Can't see anything in my mirrors, so that's a good sign at night. So my whole aim is to go coast to coast, not necessarily in Mexico, but that seems to be the best way to do it because on the start of the last episode, considering that I'd set up my base in San Diego, I thought, well, the obvious place to go from there would be to Mexico, so we've done that. So we're continuing across Mexico, heading to the east, sort of see how far we can get. And basically you want to stay in northern Mexico around the border areas of the US because I want to be able to get in and out of the US easy when I hit the east coast of America. I thought I was going to sneeze, so I turned my microphone off and then no need to sneeze. But I can imagine, like, I haven't driven in Mexico, but I can imagine this is what it would be like based on driving at night on the US side in this sort of general deserty sort of area. Mind you, when I was in the States, I tried not to drive at night as much as I could. In 2009, I did an epic road trip. I took 3 months off work and I went basically from west coast to east coast and then back again. I hired a car which was a Pontiac. And when I got there, I actually found that I was upgraded to a Jeep Patriot. So that was sweet.
Continue straight.
I like those signs that just say to USA. I like that sort of signs. So I'd actually been upgraded to a Jeep, so I travelled from coast to coast. I basically went from the west coast. I went up I started in LA, went up as far as Portland, Oregon, into Seattle, into Vancouver in Canada, across east, back down through Idaho, through places like Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, that sort of thing, into Illinois, and then across the north, New York State, into New York City, and then came back via the south, places like Alabama and Mississippi and Kentucky and Texas and New Mexico, and then back to California. So that's basically the way I went for 3 months. And so while there was some days, it was summer over there, so there were some days where I was driving up to 12 hours a day, but because the nights were, my truck is frozen. There we go. We've come back. That's scary. I was basically driving for 12 hours a day, and with the exception of some things that I had, I won't say booked, but there was certain events or people that I was seeing that I wanted to see on certain dates, or the event was on a certain time period, so I had to be in those cities at those times. But there was a lot of other times where, for instance, I'd get up in the morning and I'd be generally, say for instance in this case, heading east. So I'd drive for 10, 12 hours or whatever, and then when I got tired, I found a place and I checked in and I slept and then got up and then I continued. So it was a case of just driving until I was tired, find a place, sleep, repeat. Just as long as I was heading basically in the direction that I was going. So for instance, if I was heading to Chicago, I wouldn't necessarily plan the route, to the nth degree, or what I was going to do on that particular day. It was a case of, just pointing the car in the general direction of Chicago on the interstate, or on the highway or whatever, and then just see how far I got and then pull it over. I know there was one night there was a pretty big storm, and it was dark, and it was 10 o'clock at night, so I thought, well, now's the no real use pushing on anyway. But it was an interesting way to see the States. For one, I know there was a time there where I got a bit sick on the way back. I was going through somewhere like Tennessee on the way back, and I'm like, I'm not feeling, I'm not feeling good at all. I just need a couple of days just to, I'd done a lot of driving and that sort of stuff. I just needed a couple of days just to relax and that sort of stuff. So I checked into a hotel for a couple of days, and as long as I was back in California in time to return the car and get on my flight home, I was sweet. But it's funny, I've actually driven more in the States, more in America, than what I have in my own country of Australia, because I have either caught the train everywhere or I've flown to a lot of places. Now we've got a bus who can't quite decide which part of the lane he wants to be in. He's sort of straddling the edge line on the right there. So let's say driving, I've driven around my state a bit. My home state of New South Wales, I've driven there. I've done lots of trips. Sydney, Newcastle, I'm living in Newcastle now, so plenty of trips there. I've driven north of Sydney, through to Brisbane and the Gold Coast via the Pacific Highway, through Brisbane, and up to, I think it was Mackay, central Queensland. That's as far as I've driven north, and that was only like once. Like, I haven't done, like, from where I am in Newcastle, there's two main ways to get to Brisbane, and there's the Pacific Highway, which is the major one. The road's improved a lot since I was last on it, but you know, that is a long drive. Oh, I got busted speeding 7 miles over. Out of all the time for there to be popo. So I've only done that trip the once. But there's another way. The Pacific Highway is mainly a coastal route. So you go through places such as Port Macquarie, Coffs Harbour. Coffs Harbour is well known for its bananas and the big banana that's out the front of the on the highway. Port Macquarie, Grafton, Byron Bay. Byron Bay is fairly well known for, like, that's where celebrities like to go and retreat in Australia. It's a real hippie sort of place. And then up to the Gold Coast and Brisbane. But there's another way you can go, which is more inland. So you go through places such as Tamworth, which is the Australian country music capital. And then you go through places like Armidale, and then you go into Queensland that way over the Toowoomba Ranges, and then into Brisbane that way. I've never done that trip. Then, heading south, I've driven lots of trips down to Canberra, which is our... You serious, dude? Which is our national capital. I drove once to see a mate down in the Riverina area, which was about 8 hours drive south of Sydney. He didn't even know I was coming. I just paid him a surprise visit. We met in the city, and then he moved with his job to the country, and so I had a few days off, and I thought I'd go down and surprise him, because I hadn't seen him since he'd moved to the country. Mind you, that was the only time that I'd made that trip. So I've never driven to Melbourne, which is 10 to 12 hours from Sydney in the car. I've always caught the train, or I've always flown. Until recently, until a certain global pandemic that we're all aware of. I think that was the Sydney-Melbourne aviation route was the second or the third busiest in the world, which was always a surprise. But you know, plane travel, along with a lot of other things, has dropped significantly. Now in terms of west, I've driven to Bathurst and to Orange, which was about 3 or 4 hours to the west. I caught a bus from Dubbo to Broken Hill. Now, Broken Hill, if anyone's seen the movie Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, that was set in and around the Broken Hill area, and it's outback. Broken Hill itself is close to the border of New South Wales and South Australia, and it is that far to the west of Sydney, and that much closer to Adelaide, the state capital of South Australia, that Broken Hill is actually on the South Australian time zone, half an hour behind the Sydney time zone, because they do a lot of their business dealings and everything with Adelaide rather than Sydney. You know, because Broken Hill's about 14 hours solid on a train. You know, I remember the time that I caught the train out, and then the bus. I got the train from Western Sydney to Dubbo, so I probably left home about 8 a.m. Got to Dubbo just after 2, and then got on a bus, and then I think it was about 10 p.m. We arrived in Broken Hill, so that was a good solid 14 hours there. And I remember hiring a car, and probably the most inappropriate small, because it was the cheapest, you know, 1.6 litre automatic roller skate on wheels, because I wanted to drive out to the New South Wales South Australian border. You know, and you know, that's a good 50 or so kilometres in each way. You know, these big outback roads. We're in Santa Ana now. It was quick. I know game time's different and everything like that, but still quick. So we've got our distribution centre coming up. Morgan will no doubt tell me when to turn. Not this straight, but the next one.
In 0.1 miles, turn right. Turn right.
So a couple of ambulances there. Might get a better look at this ambulance when I turn the corner. Oh, there we go. There's our distribution centre.
In 0.1 miles, turn right. Turn right. You've arrived. It's been my honor and duty to see you through this mission.
All right. Okay, 212 miles, 4 hours and 39 minutes of game time. And so we've done well there. We've just got onto level 2. I have started a new profile because of all the mods, so I didn't wreck my main simulated ERC profile, just in case things didn't go well. So we'll continue over here. We'll get more long distance so we can do longer trips. Okay, so we're in Santa Ana. It's 2 a.m. Tuesday morning. Let's see, what have we got on the job market? Oh, we've got more jobs available to us now. As we're going through places and unlocking center, and we'll be back here. Maybe a page back. Okay, so we can go to Holbrook, Arizona, Sholo, Arizona, Yuma, Arizona. That's basically as far as we can go. So let's have a look on the map to see those general directions. So we're basically going straight up to go to Holbrook. Sholo slightly shorter. And Yuma is totally backtracking the way that we went. So let's go. Let's take this lot of sawdust panels up to Arizona. So that's as far as we can go east in Mexico for the moment, so it seems. Now I do have to laugh when it comes to some of these achievements where it'll say, oh, you've explored 100 cities, you've explored 200 cities, you've travelled X number of miles, you've picked up 45 million passengers. Alright, so we're expected Tuesday at 1:45 in the afternoon. It's 2:10 in the morning now. There's 24 hours in the window. Next rest stop in 14 hours. We should make it there in 10, so we're sweet there.
There are those who would like to see you fail in your journey. That's not going to happen on my watch. Let's go.
Alright, I'm just trying to think. There was a key for high beam that wasn't L in I'm just trying to think what that actual control was. We'll have a look at our truck while I just check that control. So another semi. Has that only got? Oh no, I thought it only had one set of wheels down the back. That would have been a bit silly. It's like it's missing. It's like it's missing a pair of wheels at the back. Let's see if I can get a better view. It's like it's missing a pair of wheels. Can I zoom in now? And here we are back in Mexico. We'll get back in the truck. We'll get back in the truck now. Got some extra lights, so that's good. Which way do we get out of here? Don't want to do my usual. I don't know how to get out of the distribution center. Okay, seems to be going around to the right, so let's go. So we've got our new load on. We're heading to Arizona, more into the areas that I've actually more into the areas that I have driven into in real life. So as we've seen in American Truck Simulator before, even though, and there's a good example, even though the X's are there so I can't go that way, other trucks and other vehicles can definitely go through there.
Turn right.
Thank you, Morgan. There's the police. Not looking very Mexican, but here we go. One thing that I did notice in Mexico, I mentioned in the last episode that
In 0.1 miles. Turn right.
I did notice when I was in Mexico City, as I was mentioning in the previous episode, that the police cars often, it doesn't matter what they're doing, they're often driving around with their red and blue lights on. Sometimes sirens as well, and obviously they needed those sirens, but there are other times it was rare for me to see a Mexican police car that was driving without its red and blue lights on.
Continue straight.
So we're heading up to Arizona. Hopefully I won't have troubles entering the US like I did on the previous episode, where the boom gate wouldn't go up. They had it set up as like a toll plaza. beam gate wouldn't get up, then I couldn't reverse. In the end, I just rung and got someone else to come and pick the load up, and presumably I was in trouble with the feds. So a slow windy hill to start us out of town. Oh, I got an accident or something up here. Big accident by the looks of that. So far everything's run okay in terms of the map mods. There hasn't been anywhere yet where I've come up where it says no, you can't go here, or this area isn't working. Everything seems to be working fine and seamless. Changing areas, so it seems. Now, some people might say, "Oh, why modify the game? Just use the maps that are provided." And I've actually purchased the all of the maps that are required, that are prerequisites for the map mod. So it's not as if I'd have never downloaded a map that I've had to pay for. But this just gives me more things to do in the game. It, has probably extended my playing time for both the American Truck Sim and Euro Truck. Am I getting a police escort? That's what it seems like. They're going very, very slowly. And I'm not going to overtake them. It's windy road, uphill. So to try and overtake them just to go that little bit faster just seems stupid at this point. Even though that car's just done exactly that. As we go on, the jobs will start to get a bit longer, as has happened in previous episodes, as I've built up experience points and more time in game, that sort of stuff. It'll start to allow me to do longer trips. But I'm sort of aiming in the ballpark of 1 hour to 90-minute episodes. Don't want to go much beyond that, even if it means splitting the trip up into 2 or 3 episodes, as I've had to do. isn't dual carriageway, is it? Yeah, it is, but I'm not gonna go around that police car, there's no point. Until I can get, now I know it's definitely dual carriageway, now I can, if I get a straight bit, like I'm not 100% sure what the speed limit is around here. Being an American truck, everything's in miles per hour. Being in Mexico, you know, one of the numerous countries around the world apart from America that uses the metric system, all the street signs are in kilometres per hour. I've got a rough idea, but I'm not exactly sure what the actual speed limit is, and that's not on the navigation. So we're getting around a series of trucks. Here we go. Looks like we've got ourselves a convoy. It's just popped up 37 miles an hour as the speed limit I should be aiming for. I need to turn.
Keep right. And then turn right.
So if I can go behind this truck. Oh, this must be the Nogales, yes. It's a border city, so we're entering America again. So hence all the trucks in one big line. Nogales is one of these cities that always comes up in border documentaries. You know, border cities between the US and Mexico. So we'll have a look outside the truck. It's certainly certainly a lot of trucks around at the moment. So we'll turn to the right.
Turn right.
So he's probably waiting for me to turn as well. Now, I haven't seen anything to say that we've actually entered America yet. That's probably not too far away. I think this is the Mexican side. Certainly a queue of cars, that's for sure, waiting at the traffic lights there. Seems to be more traffic in these mods than in the base game, so this must be the border here. See if I can pick. Oh, there might not be an automatic lane. Let's see if I can. Oh, hang on. There seems to be. Because I had trouble entering the US before at Tijuana. with the boom gates that stayed down. So we're back in America. And for many truckers and people in border towns, this just crossing borders just seems normal to them. In normal times, things might be a bit different at the moment due to a certain global pandemic, but you know, I know of people, maybe not so much on the US-Mexico border, but certainly on the US-Canada border, for instance, where
That was the longest night of my life.
we got there in the end, MF. Where it'd be routine to live on one side of the border, work on the other side, send the kids to school on the other side,
Continue straight.
you know, go shopping on the other side or whatever. It'd be quite routine. And that's a major issue, without going too much into it, because it's been going on for months. And I don't know when you're watching this video, but it's August 2020 now. The global pandemic really started affecting Australia in, I'd like to say, March. So since then we've had various state borders that have closed at various stages, and it's been different depending on what state you're going to, what state you're coming from, where you live, if you're in a hot spot, that sort of stuff. International travel's basically been stopped with few exceptions, and if you've and if you've been overseas, say if you're an Australian resident, you can come back. If you're not an Australian resident, you've been basically told you won't be allowed in, but you have to go into 14 days hotel quarantine when you get back. So for the border communities, mainly between New South Wales and Queensland, around the Tweed Heads, Coolangatta, Gold Coast areas, that's been difficult, because for a lot of people and this is the point that I'm getting at, for a lot of people it's just been routine over the years. You live on one side of the border, you work on the other, you got friends on both sides, you do social things on both sides, you do shopping on both sides. In some instances, your nearest option might be to cross state borders, and and same too with New South Wales and Victoria. Places like Albury-Wodonga, that's basically a border region. Albury's the New South Wales side and Wodonga's the Victorian side. So with the exception of the checkpoint that might be set up for, for quarantine purposes, for fruit fly and that sort of stuff, there's never usually any hard borders if you're driving between states. So all of a sudden they've had to set up these borders, and they've had police and also the defence forces out there trying to stop people from going interstate at these border crossings, where there's basically no infrastructure that would physically prevent somebody from going from one country to the other. There's certainly not fences or anything like that. You know, sometimes there's just a sign that says, "You are now leaving New South Wales. Welcome to Queensland," and vice versa. So all of a sudden, there's all these, you know, temporary barriers that are actually marking the border. And you know, today the border situation could be this situation. This time next week, it could be a different situation. So the authorities have had to be really flexible and relatively quick to get things into play. Whereas international land borders like the US and Mexico or US and Canada, while there have been improvements and additions to the infrastructure in some way, shape or form has always been there to a degree. More so US, Mexico, but even the infrastructure is increasing between US and Canada. You know, there are times there, mainly the US-Canada border, for instance, where it might only be a
Continue straight.
It might have only been opened. Oh, we're coming into daylight now. The border might only open in daylight hours to cut back on staffing and that sort of stuff. So there's either a telephone system where you have to, or the
Right. And then exit right.
is there roadworks or something here? That exit's closed. There's no way I'm
Exit
getting
right.
through that. I can't, Morgan. That's heavily closed there. I had actually...
That was the longest night of my life.
Oh, yeah. There was a situation recently in Eurotruck where I decided just to go around the... they had the exits closed off like that, not that well. But it was well and truly closed off on that occasion. But in Eurotruck I could actually go around the police. And so I went around the police a couple of times. They didn't come chasing me or anything, which I was a little bit surprised about. And I did squeeze past the accident, which was the reason that the exit was closed. But then there's no way I'm getting through that, so I'll just go through to the next one. And sometimes that's what you need to do. Your voice nav might not necessarily know that exit's closed. Sometimes with things like Google Maps, they're getting better. That if the State Traffic Authority puts out that a road's closed, there might be roadworks at night or something like that, or there might be an accident, and they'll say, "Oh, you know, exit 17's closed," and so this navigation will actually know that, and so it won't get you to try and go via exit 17. And then it will redirect you to the next one. And so one thing that's there's a big long Union Pacific train on the right there. So that train mod appears to be working, which gives us longer and more realistic trains. That's awesome. It's a big long train. Pretty much what you would actually see in this area of Arizona. No, I don't want to head back to San Diego. I came from there. But things have got a lot better. I shared on the last episode a story where I had a US keep left radio. Had a US navigation device back when we had things like nav bands and I didn't know it at the time until I actually got to Canada that it only had US maps installed. So when I got to Canada, as soon as you cross the border, you don't see the streets anymore. It's just a whole big grey area, and it says go to nearest road. Even though I was travelling down Canada Highway 1, go to nearest road. You know, that sort of stuff wouldn't be able to fly these days. I remember travelling through Europe and I got a local SIM card, and I did have to make sure that I had full coverage in the countries that I was in without roaming charges. So that was good. And then when I got to England, I got a local SIM because I knew I wasn't going to be going back into Europe, because I spent a whole heap of time in Europe and then I spent a whole heap of time in the UK. So when I got to the UK, I got a local SIM card there and that sort of thing. So we're doing pretty well. We're up to basically up to our 75 mile an hour limit. Now, of course, with these map mods, you know, it can be a little bit complicated if you don't know what you're doing, and especially with these map mods because they come from outside the Steam Workshop, so it's not as easy. But this section of the map, there may have been some changes that they've made, but Arizona is one of the states that you can natively go into on American Truck Sim. Mind you, the idea of Phoenix discovered. The idea of these extra maps isn't new, but I hadn't necessarily done anything about it because I wasn't recording episodes. You know, up to 2 years ago, these maps were out.
Continue straight.
But they've been, you know, they've been improved a lot, and they've had to improve, and they've had to stay compatible as the game's been improved. This is American Truck Sim version 1.38, and so all the mods that I'm using, some of them are available via the Steam Workshop, some aren't. They have to be compatible with 1.38. So what happens when the game company puts out 1.39, either don't upgrade to it or go back to your non-modded version, and then you just basically have to wait until those mods become compatible with 1.39 and then go your hardest from there, sort of thing. So we're coming up to the Flagstaff exit. We've had no major delays so far, so that's good. We can see signs pointing us to LA. So we'll just keep going straight because that's the way that the nav is telling us, the navigation screen. And Mr. Morgan Freeman, the
keep right and then exit right.
So we're heading in the general direction of Flagstaff. Although, funny thing is, I do love Morgan Freeman's voice. You know, he's got that sort of voice that you would love him to navigate your life and to narrate your life. And so with American Truck Sim, I'll keep him as the navigation voice as long as I can. But I couldn't get anything to work as well in Euro Truck Sim, so I've just got one of the included voices. Sky from the UK. Sky with an E, and so because she seems to know everything and know where I'm going and know exactly where I am at the time and the name fits, I've called her Skynet. And so I'll keep her for the Japanese and European versions of Truck Simulator that I'm using, but as long as I can, as long as he continues to work, I'll have a look. I'll keep Mr. Morgan Freeman as long as I can, but I'm just trying to think and I'll have a look, see what movies he's been in, and see if I've actually seen any of his movies. There's so many movies out there that, or actors for that matter, that you know their voices, and you know what they've been in and that sort of stuff. And you know enough about the movie, but when you go and think about it, you've never actually seen the movie. Samuel L. Jackson, another example of that. Like everyone quotes Snakes from a Plane. I don't think I've ever seen that movie. Was he in Passenger 57? I did really enjoy his role in The Taking of Pelham 123, but that was because it was New York and about the how terrorists took over a New York subway train. So that was the main reason I watched that movie. It wasn't because of Samuel L. Jackson. But come to think of it, I probably haven't seen a lot of his movies either. It's funny, you see some people, and a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there that seem to have seen so many movies, but because I was doing other things, all my interests are different. I might not have seen. Or what I also tend to do, I also tend to rewatch movies that I like. For instance, Flying High / Airplane, depending on where you are. I can't remember how many times I've seen that. Both Wayne's World movies as classic, for instance, The Simpsons movie. Haven't watched the South Park movie for quite some time, even though I enjoyed that. I watched that a lot when it first came out. But there are certain movies that you tend to watch over and over again, but you don't necessarily of the person as a legend in acting or whatever, but sometimes you don't know exactly what movies they've been in, which ones you've seen. So when we deliver this load, we mustn't be far away. We'll have a look and see if I've actually seen or even heard of in some.
Continue straight.
I've seen quite a few Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. For instance, I actually listened to a biography of his recently, or relatively recently, within the last year. How his father was a member of the Nazi Party and all that sort of stuff. They're trying to get him involved in the Nazi Party, all that sort of stuff. How he was in the army, in the Austrian army, and he discovered bodybuilding basically as a way to get bigger and get more noticed by the girls. And then he put the work in and discovered that he was actually good at it, and he enjoyed it, and then he just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then he got on the steroids and everything like that. But he was actually in the army, and there was a competition that he wanted to go in, a European competition that he wanted to go in, but he was actually in the middle of a commitment with the army, and he wasn't supposed to leave. Like, he couldn't get leave to go into this competition back then. Probably so much easier now. Might have even been through, you know, the early stages of his military career, because they had compulsory military service. And so he actually broke out of his army base, went to compete, came back, of course, got busted, and then he had to Kenworth. That's a real name on the back of that trailer, so that mod works well. So he had to serve. You're running out of fuel. Okay, you should find a filling station. Okay, well, we'll do that. We're not paying for the fuel anyway, so if we see one, we must be actually close to our, you know, we've been driving for a fair while though, and you don't always get the trucks full when you pick them up either. So if I see a service station, I definitely will pull in. Fuel light is indeed on. Been getting 5.6 gallons to the mile for the trip. Considering I'm driving a big truck, that's pretty good. I actually ran out of fuel once on a motorway. I just driving along, and I thought I had enough fuel to get to the service station, but it turns out that I didn't. So I was actually on my way to work. So I was actually it's about 3 times that I can think of, which is, do we have to turn left at Albuquerque? There's been 3 times that I've been on my way to work and the car's broken down, or I've had some sort of mechanical issue, and then I haven't gone to work. My truck's frozen. There we go. Can't see a fuel stop on the map immediately coming up. The time that I ran out of fuel, and then I just said to the road service, I says, I'm on the freeway, I've run out of fuel. It'd just be quicker just to get, because you can get so many miles worth of free towing with the that was my computer froze, and I didn't have control, and I crashed into that other truck. Sorry, my dude. So I just said to the road service that there's it'll just be quicker just to send the tow truck out to me, rather than, you know, sending the patrolman to the service station, bring me some fuel, come back, fill me up, and then go. It'd just be easier just to tow me to the service station, which was only 2 or 3 kilometres up the road, and then I'll just fill up there. But because of the time that process took, I just turned around and went home. There was another time where the car just stopped dead on the freeway, and so it was on a really elevated section. Like, if you think of like freeways around LA, that sort of elevated section where there's not a lot of places to stop. You know, no breakdown lanes or anything like that. So what they did, because of where I was, they sent out the tow truck straight away. They towed me to a McDonald's car park, and then got the service vehicle to come and meet me there. But what that ended up doing, like I had to wait for the tow truck to come out first of all. But I didn't know it was going to be a tow truck. I just thought it was going to be a patrol person. And then when the tow truck rocked up, he said, "Oh no, the patrol people don't actually come here. We tow you to a safe place, and then they come and meet us." So I had to wait a fair while for the for the tow truck to actually arrive.
Continue straight.
Then he towed me to the Macca's car park, and then I was expecting, oh, okay, so the patrolman will be pretty close by. He'll be pretty close by to come and see what the issue was. But no, I had to wait. So I reckon I had to wait about 90 minutes for the actual tow truck to arrive in the first place. Then I had to wait another 90 minutes for the service vehicle to show up, and I just rang work and I said, well, you know, I've been waiting for this amount of time. You know, I'm just going to stay with the car, see what happens, and I'm not going to come in I'm not going to come in because I'm just going to be ridiculously late. You know, it's not as if I'm in an office and I can be flexible with the work hours and say, okay, well, I'm a bit late and I'll just stay back a bit later and make up the time. That's not how it works where I am. So I get to the Macca's car park. The patrol officer eventually arrives, and he says to me, "Oh, well, there's nothing I can do here. You know, I think it was something like the alternator or something like that needed to be replaced." He says, "Well, we'll get you a tow, and because of the coverage that I had and the distance I could actually get to the mechanics where I always went." And so I got into the so I got another tow truck back from the McDonald's car park back to the mechanics near home, and by the time that I actually walked through my front door, after leaving from the time that I left to work to the time I got back, it was about 6 hours, even though I hadn't actually got to work. I was probably 10 minutes away from work when it happened, and I just died suddenly in traffic. I just had enough time just to get out of the way and just stop. Well, that's nice. So yeah, about 6 hours. About 6 hours had passed at that stage by the time I actually got home, and then I had to basically dump the car at the mechanics. The tow truck driver drove me home, which was only like 5 minutes, and then the next day I had to ring the mechanic and say, "This has happened, need this done, blah 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 blah." And I went to work the next day and it was all good. But you know, there was that time. There was another time where I had a puncture. There's a few people out there that say that you should be able to change your own tyre. Starting to get fatigued, so it must be close to the end of the delivery. So I got a puncture. No, I don't want to update Windows now. Far out. No, I don't want to. that's not good. Now, am I out of fuel? Now that's not good. I was just driving along. I might sound like I'm constantly making excuses, but the way my setup is we'll try and pull over up here and have a look at the damage. Oh, the simulated damage at least. The way my setup is that it only captures my recording only captures the game footage. It doesn't capture anything that pops up on my screen. Like, for instance, I've got a 49-inch. I've got a 49-inch screen. I've got a 49-inch screen, and so in the center I've got the game. To the right-hand side, I've got my recording and switching for the recordings. But the way it works out is that it only records what's going on in the game. Like, if anything pops up, like, you need to update Windows right now, it appeared right in front of the gameplay. That Windows update screen took control of the game away from me, and then naturally I just crashed because I couldn't control it, because Windows, you need to update right now, and I only just did a massive update just before I started recording this episode. So as far as you'd be able to see when you're watching this episode, you won't see the big white Windows update message that's come up in front of me. To me, I could see it because I obviously saw it, but to you, it just looks like I can't drive. So we're at the side of the road. Doesn't appear to be any damage, but it won't simulate the damage. Let's see, where are we? We're 23 miles away. We're almost out of fuel. We're fully fatigued. Next rest stop in an hour 26. We're 27 minutes away, but we're expected to arrive before 8:21 Tuesday. So we've got 23 miles. So in relative terms, we're just around the corner. We'll get rid of that because I got the one on the screen. Now it says that my engine's damaged, but I'm in the middle of nowhere. So this will be a good bit of role playing. Just want to limp back. Now I know I'm running low on fuel. That doesn't help. Now I haven't seen a service station since the low fuel warning came up. So I'm just going to try and reduce the load on the engine. And we'll just see. I don't think we're actually that far. And so if I can make it, let's try and increase the speed a little bit and see what happens. So the fuel situation will be sorted out once we get there, because this isn't our permanent truck. The fatigue situation will fix itself, and the fuel situation and the truck situation will fix itself. So hopefully I can just carry on. It actually reminds me, I was talking earlier about hiring the Jeep and going across from one coast to the other of America and back. The Jeep only had something like 500 miles on it when I picked it up, and
Keep right, and then exit right.
and I drove from one coast to the other. Now I noticed after the
Exit right.
you are getting tired, you should find a place to rest. Well, I'm nearly there.
In
Uh,
0.1 miles, turn right.
After about day one of a 3-month trip, I noticed that the check engine light came on of this Jeep. And so I rung up the hire place and said, you know, I'm on day one of a massive trip. I've just had the check engine light come on. Do you want me to bring it back while I'm still close to you, or do you want me to drop it off somewhere? Do you want me to put it in for a service or whatever? And they said, oh no, we've just had it done, but the check engine message
Keep
might
right,
not have
then turn right.
might not have been removed. So you're sweet to go. So you sure? Yeah, that's fine. You know, it's only just been done. And I said to him, well, you know that I've got the vehicle for, you know, basically 3 months on a long hire. And they said, yeah, that's fine. You know, we'll service it again when you come back, because it'll be due. So no worries. And I had no dramas. I was obviously a bit worried, and I'm thinking this situation with the truck, although the accident certainly didn't help. And we're just around the corner anyway, so all that will fix itself.
In 0.1 miles, turn left.
So we have arrived.
Turn left.
And we have arrived.
You've arrived. It's been my honor and duty to see you through this mission.
So we've got a damaged truck. That's the most I've ever damaged a truck. Basically no fuel, and I'm fatigued. But we made it. And you think I'm going to park it now? You're kidding? Oh, I got a damage penalty, so I didn't get excellent, I just got good work. Level 2 skill rank long delivery bonus, so the long distance stuff's starting to kick in now. I'm level 3. And I've got a damage penalty. Oh, it's 1.2%. I thought that said 12%. It's 1.2%. So I lost a little bit of points there. But considering, so we're in Holbrook. So I'll just set up my next job. So we're in Holbrook now. So we'll just go to the job market. So Holbrook. Oh, now I can get jobs out of Mexicali. Okay, let's see, what jobs have we got from Holbrook? Holbrook to Alamogordo in New Mexico. So that's basically east, which is the direction in which I want to head. Albuquerque, that's straight east, and Albuquerque would be good one to go to. Clovis will basically get us all through New Mexico. Flagstaff back down to Mexicali. Colorado's just basically going north. San Simon's basically going to the south. Tucson's going back to where we've already been through there. It's like coming out of Holbrook. So, on our next job, was it Rangeley? No, that's basically up to Colorado. I was going to go to Albuquerque, but now I'll take some dry milk to Clovis, which basically takes us all the way through New Mexico. So I hope you have enjoyed the episode. We'll be going basically all the way across New Mexico in our next episode. I have explored all of the New Mexico map before. But before we go, I did mention that I wanted to have a look at the film career of our navigator, Mr. Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman movies. See which ones I've actually seen, which ones I've heard of, and if there's ones that I've never even heard of. Wow, Morgan Freeman, born the 1st of June 1937. So we'll just have a... Whoops, what happened then? So we'll just... I had a feeling I've stopped at this one before, quite honestly. So born in 1937, Mr. Morgan Freeman. Yeah, I got a feeling I've stopped here before. Okay, that's a good screen. Born in 1937. Out of all this time, he's won one Oscar. So for Academy Awards, he won an Oscar for Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role for $1 Million Baby in 2004. And he's been nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role for Incubus in 2009, Shawshank Redemption in 1994, and Driving Miss Daisy in 1989, and nominated for an Oscar Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Street Smart in 1987. He's won a Golden Globe, the Cecil B. DeMille Award in 2012. Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical for Driving Miss Daisy in 1989. Won an Outstanding Narrator Award. Oh no, he didn't. He was nominated for an Outstanding Narrator Primetime Emmys in 2018. Nominated as the funniest actor in a motion picture leading role in the American Comedy Awards in 1990 for Driving Miss Daisy. So he's had a lot of awards and a lot of nominations, but probably not as many as you'd think. So I should just go back to just a general list of the movies that he's been in, and then I promise we'll finish. He was born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1937. He's 6'2". Let me see, what's he been in? He's listed as an actor in 127 movies, a producer in 17, a director in 2, played himself in 333. So let's see, what's he been in? Morgan Freeman. We'll work our way from start to finish. So it looks like his first movie was 1964. He was uncredited as Man on Street in The Pawnbroker. Did a couple of uncredited roles, including a Grand Central commuter in a movie called Where Were You When the Lights Went Out in 1968. He starred as Chris in Blade in 1973. He was in a TV series called The Electric Company in the 70s, 780 episodes. He was in Julius Caesar in 1979. Eyewitness in 1981. A TV series called Texas in 1981. Detective Michaels for 2 episodes. Depth of a Prophet as Malcolm X in 1981, a TV movie. Harry and Son in 1984, Teachers in 1984, Marie in 1985. That was then, this is now in 1985. The Twilight Zone, he was in 1 episode in 1985. A lot of TV movies. Straight Smart in 1987. Clean and Sober in 1988, Lean on Me in 1989, Johnny Handsome in 1989, Driving Miss Daisy in 1989, Glory in 1989, Bonfire of the Vanities in 1990, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves in 1991, first narrating role, The True Story of Glory continues in 1991. He was in The Power of One in 1992, The Unforgiven, The Shawshank Redemption in 1994, Outbreak in 95, Seven in 95, Mole Flanders in 96, Chain Reaction in 96, Kiss the Girls in 97, Amistad 97, Hard Rain 98, Deep Impact 98, Under Suspicion 2000, Nurse Betty 2000, Along Came a Spider in 2001, High Crimes and The Sum of All Fears in 2002. He was in a movie called Levity in 2003, along with Dreamcatcher, Bruce Almighty, where he played the role of God. Guilty by Association in 2003, The Big Bounce in 2004, $1 Million Baby in 2004. He was the narrator for a series called Slavery in the Making of America in 2005. Unleashed in 2005, along with Edison, Batman Begins, The War of the Worlds, where he was the narrator. He was a voice in Batman Begins video game in 2005. An Unfinished Life in 2005. Lucky Number 11 in 2006. Along with 10 Items or Less and The Contract. Evan Almighty in 2007, along with Gone Baby Gone, The Feast of Love, The Bucket List in 2007. Wanted, The Dark Knight in 2008. Thick as Thieves, The Maiden Heist, Inktivus in 2009. The narrator in Conan the Barbarian in 2011, The Dolphin Tale in 2011, The Magic of Belle Isle in 2012, along with The Dark Knight Rises in 2012, Olympus Has Fallen and Oblivion, Now You See Me, Las Vegas in 2013, The Lego Movie in 2014, along with Transcendence, Wish Wizard, Lucy, 5 Flights Up, Dolphin Tale, and he was also the narrator for a TV movie documentary called The Mona Lisa Myth in 2014. 2015, Last Nights, Ted 2, Momentum. In 2016, London Has Fallen, Now You See Me, Ben-Hur, Going in Style in 2017. He was in 3 episodes of Madam Secretary, the TV series, in 2015 to 2017. Just Getting Started in 2017. Narrator of Alpha in 2018. Brian Banks, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms in 2018. The Poison Rose, An Angel Has Fallen in 2019. So, wow, quite an extensive history and quite a busy man, Mr. Morgan Freeman, and now he's my simulated navigator, or the simulated voice of Morgan Freeman is. Anywho, I'm Simulated Irk. We will see you next time, and let's go and sort Windows out. That was annoying. See you next time. Don't forget to stay safe for trucks. Stay safe for trucks, watch out for trucks, and see you next time. Bye for now.
There are those who would like to see you fail in your journey. That's not going to happen on my watch. Let's go.
Can we stop for ice cream, Bart? Can we stop for ice cream? Oh, it's the Max! Ho 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 ho! The Portland Light Rail System, the Max, and that's what it actually